Good morning, everyone. I want to call the July 15th special board meeting of the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors to order. Please join me in a pledge to the flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Ms. Cunha, will you please read the public participation procedure?
In order to protect public health and the safety of our Tuolumne County citizens, this Board of Supervisors meeting will be physically closed to the public. During the board meeting, citizens who wish to comment should be prepared to use our call-in line at area code 209-533-6581 to queue for verbal public comment. Public comment will be opened and closed individually for each agenda item listed below. If you wish to comment on a specific item, please call in when the board clerk has read the item. The chair will ask if there are any comments from the public at that time, and your call will be taken in order that it is received. The public comment time limit on each item is set for 3 minutes per speaker. The time limit does not apply to staff. Public access video and audio live streaming at Tuolumne County website. The public will not have access for public comments. This is available for audio and visual only, or access to Tuolumne. Zoom meeting, the public will not have access for public comments. This is available for listening only via computer or call in at 1-669-900-9128 with webinar ID 987-3738-5155. Important public notice. Under the government Executive Order N-2520, this meeting will allow members of the Board of Supervisors to participate by teleconference, and under Order N-2920, accessibility requirements. If you need SWIFT's special assistance during the board meeting, please call 209-533-6581. All
right, thank you. Thank you. Will the clerk please read item number 1?
Chair, I'd like to note that the packet was loaded yesterday according to the Brown Act. However, the materials for backup for both of the items were flip-flopped, and those were corrected this morning. They were up. However, they were under the incorrect item, so they have been corrected and match up with their board item this morning.
All right, thank you.
Consideration of waiving the first reading of an ordinance imposing a special parcel tax for fire protection and prevention, and providing staff direction on the associated resolution, calling the election and argument in favor of the ballot measure.
Staff report.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Liz Peterson with the County Administrator's Office. I am here today following up from direction that your board gave to staff on July 7th. Requesting that we prepare a ballot measure, which, if approved by 2/3 of the voters, would add a parcel tax for fire services on all parcels of real property on the secured property tax roll of Tuolumne County in the unincorporated areas of the County of Tuolumne that are outside the boundaries of fire protection districts and community service districts. The purpose of the tax would be for fire protection and prevention services. So there is an ordinance attached in the board packet, and according to that ordinance, if your board chooses to approve that today, this would be the first reading of the ordinance, and then we would have a second reading as well as a public hearing on August 4th if your board so chooses. According to the ordinance that's attached, the parcel tax would be assessed at the following rates. So we would have unimproved parcels would be at $75 per parcel per year, and improved parcels and commercial would be at $150 per parcel per year. In addition, in the ordinance, it states that the parcel tax would be increased annually according to the Consumer Price Index or CPI rate, but it would be capped at no more than 2%, which is consistent with how we collect property tax and increases, and then it would continue, the tax would continue until it was repealed by the voters. At the meeting on the 7th, your board also directed staff to look at a variety of exemptions and possible rate reductions for various property and parcel taxes or types. We had a robust discussion there, with equitability being the goal. After further research with staff and county council, a flat rate for $150 for improved parcels and $75 for unimproved parcels is the recommendation that we're putting forward today as the most equitable option. Certain exemptions or modified rates, such as for mobile homes, as we discussed last Tuesday, are not allowable. For instance, with mobile homes that are in mobile home parks, they're not placed on individual parcels, but rather on one large parcel. Thus, this proposed tax would not apply to those individual mobile homes. So that's just an example of some of the conversation we had from last meeting. Prior to being submitted to the voters, for this ordinance to be, or the measure to be submitted to the voters, your board must approve by resolution the ordinance that will be presented to them. And as I mentioned, that is in your packet. Your board directed this ordinance to be prepared in time to be placed on the November 3rd ballot. And if your board wishes to make any modifications to the attached ordinance, including perhaps language that would be seen on the ballot as the ballot measure, then this ordinance must be brought back for another first reading. Again, just as a reminder, the first and second reading, as well as the public hearing and the adoption of the resolution, must all be completed by August 7th. As I mentioned, there's also a draft resolution in the packet, and looking for any additional information or recommendations or changes that you would like to see in that resolution as well. Again, that would go for, ideally, for the August 4th board meeting for your board's approval to get it on the ballot for this on the 7th. And then, of course, there is the option for an argument in favor of the ballot measure as well. So your board or any member of the board may file a written argument for or against the ballot measure. The argument is limited to 300 words and may be printed in the county voter information guide as determined by the elections official. The law gives the ballot argument submitted by the Board of Supervisors or a member of the board priority for placement on the ballot. So staff is also seeking direction as to your board's desire to develop an argument in favor of the measure if your board chooses to move forward with approving the ordinance today. So today staff is recommending that you waive the first reading of the ordinance attached, imposing a special parcel tax for fire protection and prevention, and set a second reading and adoption for August 4th, 2020. Secondly, we are asking that you provide staff direction regarding your board's interest in writing an argument in favor of the ballot measure. And thirdly, provide direction regarding the draft resolution and any proposed changes you might want to make to that. I should also mention that there is a map included in the staff packet as well, or in the agenda packet, that shows the parcels that would be taxed, and then the parcels, the special districts, and the city of Sonora that would not be included in the tax.
Ms. Peterson, I have a kind of a question. So in the board packet, there's a paragraph discussing kind of the timeline. I've seen some comments online and got a few emails regarding why we're having a special meeting on a Wednesday morning. And I just wanted to kind of let people know that this is an opportunity to have more public engagement and not less, because were we not to hold a special meeting, we would only have the one meeting next week to be able to have a discussion about this, whereas now we're having two meetings. Could you kind of expand on that a little bit, on the timing and how important it is to get the discussion done within the deadline that we have for ballot items?
Sure, yeah. So as you mentioned, the meeting today is an opportunity for your board to take input from the public or staff or from each other to make any changes that you might want to do. So because we only have two regularly scheduled board meetings before the August 7th deadline, which would be the July 21st and the July 4th, and we have to have two meetings, so two readings of the ordinance, the first reading of the first meeting and second reading of the second meeting. adding in some additional board meetings, again, gives opportunity for additional input to make any changes or adjustments that your board might want to make. So, yeah, you're absolutely correct that this adds more opportunity for input.
Thank you.
But just to be clear, because the public is calling us out on this, there is a timeline associated with this.
Oh, yeah.
That we have to meet. And
Yes.
so actually, we have to have, the number of meetings is set.
Yes.
But we have a timeline that we are, the county is attempting.
Absolutely, yes. So August 7th is that deadline. And so,
Correct.
and again, with having to have 2 meetings before that, we have to squeeze in additional meetings
Yes.
whenever we can, again, with the goal of getting additional
Thank
input.
you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? Because I think it's important to hear from the public. I think we all have a lot of comments and thoughts on this, but are there any other board questions at this time? Okay, seeing none, is there any public comment? There's no public comment? All right.
Do you mind if I just make a couple additional notes of information, just as a reminder? This ordinance today must be passed by a 4/5 vote. And also, I think I mentioned it in the beginning, but because it is a special tax, it must be approved by at least 2/3 of the voters.
Thank you. All right. Chief?
Good morning, Madam Chairman and Board and leaders in the county. There are a few items I want to discuss in regards to the fire and parcel tax that we feel it's important to pass on to the board and the public as well. One of the things is we've discussed, especially over the last couple of years, is the state of the fire department and the situation that the fire department is in. I described last year as dire. I wanted to go a little bit further into what that means. We have several items and topics, but we can break it down into 4. Fleet is one of them. We've talked extensively about the fleet over the last couple of years and the age of the fleet. And it's not just that the fleet is old, which the average age of the fire engines is 23 years, but there's things that go along with that, such as water pipes and tanks are starting to rust because the water's sitting in them, and that's expensive. The safety improvements that have occurred over the last 20 years, even the last 10 years, are quite substantial in the braking systems, the lighting systems, the airbags in the fire engines. I wanted to also talk about the breathing support and some of the vehicles that we have, the utility vehicles, many of the vehicles that we have. And the fire department has a fleet of over 40 vehicles. Many of the vehicles are in a state that the cost of repairs is more than the vehicles themselves are worth. So it comes down to, we have a budget of about $110,000 for this fleet of 40 vehicles, and that really, we have to pick and choose what we fix. I just on the phone this morning with our mechanic talking about a water leak in a fire engine. We're estimating a $1,500 repair, but it's just the beginning of the fiscal year. You have to start thinking about all those fire engines that we have, what other things are going to come up over the next year. It's not just we need to fix it, or we do need to fix it, but it's just not that we can fix it. We have to really think about it and properly budget, as the public expects us to. So one of the other things I wanted to point out is the NFPA recommendations. NFPA sets a standard, which is a standard that's associated with ANSI, which is the American National Standards Institute, which is a national organization that sets standards for things such as computer language. Remember DOS and the things that started out with setting the standard on how these programs are going to be developed so they can communicate. ANSI also set standards, think back 100 years ago or longer when they started with bolts and screws and the how many threads per inch. All those standards are set. So NFPA is not just a group of firefighters that are saying we need to do this because it's better. It's thought out, it's measured, and it's a standard across the nation. Facilities, we've talked about the Jamestown Fire Station many times. A federal excess Quonset hut houses the fire engine, and the firefighters sleep in a construction trailer, a single wide construction trailer that we pay monthly rent on. And that's where they work their 72-hour shift when they're not responding to their 1,700 calls a year. The other fire stations that the county owns and runs, there's 9 other fire stations. 10 other fire stations, another one that's staffed. The 9 other fire stations have there's one that's I think it was 1945, built up in Long Barn. It's in a really poor state of repair. Most of the other fire stations are more than 40 years old, and there's just been deferred maintenance. So you think about deferred maintenance, and it adds up. So the water leak under your sink, if you don't fix it when it's small, it becomes a bigger and bigger problem. And the fire stations are, because the funds haven't been there to fix those issues, they've gotten to be significant. We believe that with all these items that we're going to talk about, and I just have a couple more points to make, that the plan that we have, and with the support of the voters and the board, we can remedy these problems and have a funded plan to take it and into the future and have the funds to fix those little water leaks before they become problems. More on equipment, specialized equipment, such as the fire hose, the jaws of life, the breathing apparatus, hose appliances, so many things that are grant funded because the funds haven't been there. This year, we're in the process of purchasing over $500,000 in self-contained breathing apparatus on a grant that we received with a 10% match. If we hadn't received that grant, we'd be coming back for not just because there's a lifespan on the breathing apparatus. That lifespan ends next year for the current ones that we have. If we would not have just asked for $1.3 million, we'd have asked for another $500,000 this year for the fire department because those are required items to be replaced. We believe that the plan that we have, as if approved by the voters, would fund those types of things and set aside funds every year. So it's not just I'll say a panic purchase or request, but a last-minute request. This plan that we've outlined and the funds that are being discussed would set aside the funds every year to plan and have those items ready to purchase as they run out of their lifespan. Another thing I wanted to point out again was the equipment that's on our fire engines that are, again, an average of 23 years old. Much of those items, such as the hose appliances, which connect different size hoses or they connect to the fire hydrants, were passed down at least once from the previous engines that were, I would estimate, were older than 23 years. So a lot of those apparatus are very, very old. And not apparatus, appliances and the equipment on those things. And when they break, again, we have to think about, can we do without it? Or where does that fit in our purchasing plan? Because we don't have the funds to just purchase everything that we need. Another item to discuss is staffing. We mentioned it briefly a few weeks ago. There was, for example, the administrative staff, there were 3.5 full-time equivalent positions several years ago in the county fire department. There's one now. There were 3 mechanics funded. There's one now. We had 4 inspectors at one point. We have 2 now. So just in the administrative side of the fire department, the staffing has decreased. Meanwhile, over that time, and since 1977, when Station 51 was staffed, that year they ran 277 incidents, which is the busiest fire station at the time. They're still the busiest fire station and run nearly 2,000 incidents a year. Actually, 2 of the last 3 years, they've exceeded that amount. There are several other, there's a volunteer fire station on the 108 corridor in Monte Vista that runs over 900 incidents a year. There's several volunteer fire stations that run over 600 incidents a year. And think about, too, some of our fire stations, 3 of our volunteer stations have no volunteers. 2 of them only have 1 volunteer. And one of those stations, a Chinese camp with 1 volunteer, is the only county fire station that has a volunteer on the 120 corridor. That has been discussed in the, with the assistance of Groveland Fire, or Groveland CSD Fire and CAL Fire, provide that coverage at this time. So that's a pretty big gap, and while the volunteer that's there is quite capable and is a dedicated employee, even he needs assistance. So as I wrap this up, I just wanted to say these are only a few brief examples. And we have a drawer full of reports that talk about the needs of the fire department that go back decades. And many of these are the same issues. And we have challenges continuously on funding, and that hasn't gone away. In the meantime, the equipment, as the revenue hasn't matched the expenses, things like the equipment, the facilities, the staffing, all of that goes down, and the level of that goes down. And as you saw this year, we were faced with the potential closure of a career staff station. And that's going to continue if we don't find a funding source. So as you know, through independent polls and many phone calls and emails to the board, the supervisors, the CAO's office, the fire stations, fire protection, the community has said time and again that fire protection is a primary concern. We feel that more now than ever is the importance of allowing the voters the opportunity to make that decision of whether fire protection is that important to them, and we urge you to place this matter on the November ballot. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question, Andy, before you go. So the Tuolumne County Grand Jury spent a great deal of time looking at our fire services, and particularly looked into equipment and the state of the equipment that we have. What were their findings, and did they make any recommendations?
I haven't reviewed that
to that?
report completely.
Okay.
I did review some of the comments in depth, but I did not review I didn't study it.
What I'm getting at is the grand jury essentially confirmed everything that you just told us, that we are under-equipped, that many of our vehicles are out of their service lifespan, and particularly they highlighted the lack of or the need for new breathing apparatus, which is a big concern for me. And one of in fact, I think it was their first recommendation was that we look at finding new sources of revenue that were that would secure funding for equipment replacement.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So don't go away. This is a comment phrased as a question because I know what the answer is, but the public deserves to know as well, and it should come from you. The question that I always get any time that we start talking about new revenue sources, and especially those revenue sources that need to come out of the taxpayer's wallet or pocketbook, is have you exhausted all the other sources such as grant funding? You talked about how we got the grant funding this year. Just your comment, if you would, on how hard, because I know it's real hard, how hard all of our staff, not just the folks that work for you and County Fire, but our CAO staff and everybody else that works these grant issues. You want to make a comment on that?
Absolutely, thank you. So yes, over the last 2 years, the County Fire Department has secured $800,000 in grants. We currently have about $2.5 million in grant applications outstanding. The problem with relying on grant funding is, of course, it's a grant, and you don't know if you're going to be awarded. We've probably applied for at least double that amount of grants, and so, you know, we're pretty fortunate to get 50% even. I don't think it's that high. I think it's probably less than that. I'm probably missing some grant apps off the top of my head, but certainly it's unknown. It's like budgeting off of overtime check. You know, in our world, you can't do your family budget on whether maybe I'll make 10 hours of overtime this month. That sort of thing. It's just a difficult thing. It's unknown. So the other part of that is we have been two other comments. So I asked one time not too long ago one of my friends. I said, we talked about different funding things and when's a good time? And he says, there's never a good time for a tax or a fee, right? And we recognize that. The fire department recognizes that. We know that. The board recognizes that. There's never a good time, but we know when it's past time, and it's past that time for the fire department especially. We're well past that time. It's dire. Dire is a big word. 4 letters. It's a big word. It is dire for the fire department for funding. The service and the ability to recruit volunteers and that sort of thing is going to decline. So. The other thing is, so we've looked at other funding measures. The board has directed the staff to look at other funding measures last year when we had this conversation, and that included these types of conversations that we're having this week. But we did, and we are looking at other revenue sources. There is a study for the impact fees going on. There's a review of false fire alarm fees going on. There's more grants that have been applied for. We're very conservative. We have a staff of 22 career employees. That includes the dispatch folks and line staff and over 50 volunteers. And we have a $5,000 training budget. We'll be fortunate this year. We'll be fortunate to get the required recertifications paid for out of that. The department is very conservative. We have to be. So I hope that answers your question.
John?
Yeah, Andy, thanks for the presentation, but also thank you for the email. It kind of really lined out some of the things that we've been talking about since I've been on the board now, almost 12 years. This should not be new and surprising to the public, I think. But one thing that you touched on is how many calls differences that we have today than we had when Station 51 was first built. I think former Mayor Garaventi can relate to this. Growing up in Groveland, when there was a fire, you went to the community hall, you pushed the button, and the siren went off, and then everybody went to the fire truck, and you had to have enough people push the fire truck to get it started, rolling down the hill, because most of the time the battery's dead.
Right.
We've come a long way. But we haven't got there. I look at the Groveland area now with over close to 3,000 more houses, or probably over 3,000 more houses there than when I grew up there 40 years ago, and there's less volunteers. There's when I was growing up, everybody was a volunteer. You can't do it that way now, right. And paid firefighters cost more money, and again, it shouldn't surprise the public that we need more money to create a department that is sustainable, whereas right now, as you spoke, it's not going to be sustainable with the funding that we have. So thank you for your hard work in bringing this forward. Hope we can get there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. I appreciate, and I want to have this conversation. I know we've got public that is waiting, so I'm going to ask them to wait for just a minute more, please. We are going to get to you. Andy, I did not mean to interrupt you. Go ahead and answer. I just want the public to understand that we know they're waiting.
Thank you. So I just want to touch real briefly on the volunteer aspect. I think looking back at the records, we've had some conversations with Supervisor Kirk and Supervisor Ryan not too long ago about the number of volunteers years ago, and I think it was over 140 countywide, just for county fire. And you look at the independent districts and the city, there were more volunteers there. So there was a large volume of volunteers. When I started 30 years ago this year as a volunteer firefighter in Sheep Branch, a tiny little town in Calaveras County, we had 12 volunteers in that little fire station. We ran 25 calls a year. And it was a big thing. It was a lot of volunteerism. But times have certainly changed, and they're going to continue to evolve as life has just gotten so busy. Even with COVID, it's so busy and nonstop, and multiple, in the household, both adults or more have to work just to make ends meet. And so that reduces the amount of time that people are available to volunteer. I just did a post last week on our social media, which we have, put a little shameless plug here on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, of the volunteers, the 10 new volunteer firefighters that we have this year have finished their training. There was a little delay because of COVID. But we found some different avenues to train. But over 300 hours of training they're required to do just to volunteer. Required to volunteer. I mean, that's a lot of commitment in itself, and it took 7 months. So I mentioned 10 new volunteers, but I think we lost, I think it's about 8 just for not being able to respond or not taking additional annually required training. So it's a huge impact that our volunteers have. It's on them to be a volunteer. And you're right, it is a cost to have career professional firefighters. But it's to the point where there has to be a response. And we're always looking for volunteers.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Yeah.
I know there's comments, but can we?
No, I have a question and a clarification. I'm going to take this off because people can't hear me sometimes. I had a lot of folks reach out really concerned about the parcel fee, where the money would go specifically. I think a lot of people, and you can clarify, and I might ask Whitman a clarification question, but a lot of people think the money is going to go to the state, like the SRA, the $150 fee, whereas this local parcel fee is going to stay specifically directed county fire. And Mr. Whitman, if you could confirm, I think over the course of those 4 or 5 years, 15, 20 million went to the state, and we got back maybe 5 or 6 million.
I wouldn't be able to know for sure.
Okay.
Because the state didn't coordinate with our
Okay.
department.
But
Increasing.
all that to simply state, can you clarify where this money would specifically stay in the local county and not go to the state?
I could give you an answer, but it's better to come from the official source.
There you go.
Debbie Batista, County Auditor Controller. One of the legal requirements of a special tax is that a special fund has to be established, and that there is a requirement annually for the Auditor Controller to give a report to the board of how those funds were spent. So these funds would not even directly go into our county fire fund right now. It would be a special revenue fund for county fire, and the monies would be spent out of that, and then annually we would give a report to the board that says where they were spent.
Thank
And that's legally a requirement.
And that report is a public document, right?
It would be it would be a public document, plus it would be a report to the board, so it would be done in the public eye.
Okay. At this time, I think our callers are back online.
Thank you. The Groveland CSD Board of Directors yesterday voted unanimously during its regular meeting to proceed with the development of a parcel tax to fund fire services in Groveland and to coordinate with the county where possible. So we therefore request that your board approve the ordinance as presented. I can tell you that if additional funding is not approved by the Groveland voters, GCSD Fire will be forced to drastically cut back its firefighter staffing, which will cripple our capacity to keep small fires under control and save lives. It's just the nature of the way it is, and unfortunately, that's where we are today. As we've stated, we have 1 to 2 more years of fund balance to be able to keep the fire department going in Groveland, which significantly affects the county fire and the rest of the county. As we have conveyed to your board many times, the health and viability of the Tuolumne County Fire Department is paramount to each and every fire department throughout the county. And our ability to rapidly and effectively respond to fire and other emergencies. So we very strongly support the Tuolumne County Fire. In Groveland, this is particularly important, as the next closest station to our district is obviously in Jamestown. I'm not sure that the individual volunteer in Chinese camp can help out so much, but Jamestown's quite a ways away from Groveland. So when GCSD Fire responds to incidents outside of its boundaries on the Highway 120 corridor, we rely on Tuolumne County Fire to provide backup coverage in GCSD should there be a concurrent incident. So you can see how Groveland Fire relies on a healthy county fire. County Fire relies on a healthy Groveland Fire, on a healthy Twin Heart Fire. And so we strongly support your approval of the ordinance. Also, as Ms. Batista spoke about the special fund for taxes, that is something I've been involved with a number of times, and it's relatively easy to keep that focused and very clear on what the public is getting for that fund. So I would entertain any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, hi, good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Amy New, Fire Chief for the City of Sonora Fire Department. Thank you so much for reopening public comment. I just hope that you were made aware that there's about a 30-second to a minute delay on the video and the public call-in. So if you could take under consideration of extending that to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. I wanted to just address that besides Tuolumne County Fire, just so the public understands, there are 8 additional fire agencies in Tuolumne County. We are all in need of funding to help for additional staffing, keep staffing with the tax cuts that have come across to everybody during COVID-19, and be sustainable. And we also want to collaborate with all of the agencies the city does. And we have had discussions with the county and all of the other fire agencies in Tuolumne County of trying to move forward with a tax measure for everybody, one tax measure, instead of having each individual agency place a tax measure on the ballot in November. Our thoughts is that if we collaborate together and try to put one ballot measure on there, it would have a better chance of passing. As you all know and the public knows, all the agencies in Tuolumne County have to respond together to mitigate large incidents. Not one of us can do it by ourselves. And so we are in hope that, I know one of the supervisors had made the comment at the last meeting about collaborating with some of the other fire agencies in the county. We have had those talks. We do have a potential availability of a way to put that together and do a measure in the short time frame that we have. We just need the assistance of the county as well to move that forward. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. I just think it's going to be really convoluted and confusing to the voters if there are several tax measures on the ballot come November. So thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa Hoffman. I'm in District 3. I just wanted to express my concern over the proposed tax increase on the parcels in the county. I'm a little frustrated that you didn't negotiate a better contract that provided for normal increases and equipment replacement, but apparently that's done. Second, I hate that I had to sit on hold for 30 minutes waiting to talk to somebody. And third, why can't you do these meetings in an enabling format so people don't have to take off time from work to do this? Also, the Sheriff's Department has taken a 6% pay cut, knowing that their deputies are taking a pay cut. Why are we offsetting one cost on the backs of taxpayers and putting another cost on top of it? It doesn't make any sense to me. I think you guys need to hire an accountant. That's it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Good morning, this is Keith Ferrer from the Columbia Fire District. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. As Chief New said as well, we have been in discussions to come up with a collaborative way that all agencies can put one tax measure on the ballot so that our voters only see one when it comes out, as opposed to having multiple ballot measures on the November ballot. So I appreciate you letting me speak, and hopefully we can all work together in a collaborative effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Hi, my name's Buffy Bandley, and I live up in Strawberry. And I've kind of got bits and pieces of what you're talking about on the parcel tax.
Good morning, Keith Ferrer from the Columbia Fire District. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. As Chief New said as well, we have been in a collaborative way.
Hello?
Please turn off your speakers.
One tax measure on the ballot.
I'm Elizabeth Buffy Bandley.
Our voters
Yes,
only
can you please turn off your speakers?
Oh, okay.
Multiple.
Is that better?
Please turn off your speakers.
I'm watching on my phone.
Okay, you'll have to turn off your phone.
Oh, okay. Come on. Volume down. Come on, go down. Don't sit on it. There we go. Can you hear it now?
That's better. Go ahead.
There's somebody talking. My name's Elizabeth Bandley. I'm calling from Strawberry, and I have some questions on the parcel tax. What specifically is this going to do for the special districts?
This tax.
So, hang on. You want to provide all your questions because, as stated in the opening, we have a 3-minute time limit. And then we will try and get, if there are specific questions, we'll get some answers. But go ahead and make your comments.
Hello?
Okay. Liz, do you want to answer the question?
Sure. So this tax would only be assessed on parcels that are within the unincorporated area of the county that are not within special districts. So the taxes that are collected would go to county fire. They would not be distributed to other special districts.
Correct. Thank you.
But the county, the special districts would not be paying that.
That is
The area of
correct.
the special districts will not be paying it?
That
would
is
be
correct.
correct.
However, as we have with our mutual aid agreements, county fire does respond to fires that happen within the special districts. So you would see county fire services potentially.
And as has been stated, some of those districts are looking at some form of revenue enhancement also.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I guess there might be some clarification.
Just a minute, please. I think we have one more comment.
Will you let me know when?
You're on now.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Nick Buller, Fire Chief for the Tuolumne Fire District. And I wanted to call in and capitalize on what Chief New and Chief Ferrer said. My board of directors and myself feel that it's highly desirable to move forward with a collaborative effort to support all Tuolumne County's fire services as well need one another to function on a day-to-day. With the call demands that's been happening, current changes through automatic and aid agreements, we're providing services in new areas, and all of the departments in Tuolumne County are looking at opportunities to provide a better service with the funding to support it for longevity. So on behalf of the board, they're highly interested in working collaboratively within this county to support a system that's sustainable that benefits everyone. Thank you.
Is there any more public comment? Right, now bring it back. So
based off some of the comments that we had from the public, I'd like a little more clarification on how this process works. So each one of these ballot measures, would they be approved? Every voter in Tuolumne County would have an opportunity to vote on them, including the special districts. However, the fire fee would not be paid by people in the special districts. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to go to Supervisor Kirk, and then I'll come to you, Supervisor Rotifer.
Okay, so entire county's going to vote on it, but as we've heard from Chief Amy, some of the other chiefs in these districts, they're going to pursue a ballot measure as well. So, and sorry if I'm confusing people, but if there's a potential, if we don't coordinate with the other districts, there's going to be multiple fire assessment fees on the ballot. Is this correct?
Can I address that?
Yes, please clarify.
So the concern about multiple measures versus one measure, it's really a legal issue. So we cannot find any legal authority that says the county who does not have jurisdiction over those special districts, because they have their own jurisdiction to issue taxes, can place one tax measure on. If your board was inclined to want to look at that more, we would need to do significantly more research to see if that is permissible under the law. I know that there has been some question about maybe the counties and the districts forming an MOU to have one ballot measure and a collection of the county collecting all of the taxes. But the issue goes back to what is the county's legal authority to place a tax measure on a ballot for other districts. So normally what happens, and you all know this when you look at, say, the TOT that the city and the county did, is while it was a joint effort, each independent authority placed a tax measure on the ballot, and that is normally how this type of process would work. So we are not opposed to doing a lot more research, but we don't have time by your deadline of August 7th to complete it, given that is a very novel concept. We cannot find any other tax measures out there. So that's why it's very complex.
So to clarify, we could do an MOU with the other districts.
That would only be for them if they place their own measure on. It wouldn't be for the county to place the measure on their behalf.
So we proceed down the road that we're going. I'm at my home, I get a ballot measure. When I open it up, I'm going to see Tuolumne County Fire parcel tax. And then I'm going to see, if I live in Tweenheart, if I live in Muick, I'm also going to see another one specifically for Tweenheart, or another one
If those special
if they
districts,
choose.
if they place some tax measure on, that's what you would see. And I also want to clarify that the reason the county has to have all of the electorate vote, whether or not they would actually have to pay the tax, is a result of case law. There's an appellate court opinion called Shapiro, and that requires the entire county electorate to vote on the tax measure.
Supervisor Rutherford.
So, partially answered my question. So there is, in your opinion, as informed at this current time, there is not a single tax measure vehicle that you think that we can put on this ballot?
At this time, and like I said, I am happy to keep doing the research and working with the other districts or the city attorney if that's your board's direction. But at this time, and we have, just so you know, we've searched, reached out to our colleagues across the state and County Council Association. We even reached out to Arthur Wileen at RCRC. We just can't find that mechanism right now.
And so with some research, because I think part of the consideration is the timing on this, and I will suggest that I've had a lot of comments, and unfortunately, I do think we are rushing this, and I absolutely understand the need, 100%, but there are some pieces of this that I find really troubling. And if we were able to look for that mechanism, part of the conversation was around the cost of a special election. If we found the mechanism to do an MOU, could that cost be distributed amongst the participating entities in that? And I'm seeing Ms. Batista shake her head yes.
I did send out some information based on what Debbie had told me. So our cost would be approximately $120,000. That's just us. That's not the district's share. So no matter what, we would incur about that approximate cost. What Debbie has said, it's about $4 to $5 per ballot for each voter, and then any costs associated with printing pamphlets or anything that we might have. So, and of course, if Debbie wants to chime in, she can.
Again, not knowing exactly what the MOU says, but for example, if indeed, where Tracy's coming from is all of the voters in Tuolumne County, if indeed we broke it up for the special districts, but I have to tell the special fire districts, the special fire districts, most of their districts are fairly small. So of our almost 33,000 voters in Tuolumne County, the large portion of them fall under the county itself. So we could drop some of the 120, but you're probably still looking at greater than $100,000. Now, if we have one ballot instead of having 9 ballots, that will actually be cheaper. Not knowing exactly what the research is that County Council comes up with, not knowing whether or not we form another entity where it is just the people in, or the voters in what I would say county's unincorporated area not covered by any other fire district. I don't know how to answer the question because I don't know what the rules are going to be.
And can I also speak to that? Because we are aware that there might be some other mechanisms, so not just an MOU, maybe some sort of JPA, maybe a Mello-Roos, that might substantially decrease the cost. But again, time to actually form, time to do the research. So that I just want to make sure there's lots of options that we know we can look at.
Right. Thank you for that clarification. Okay. So I'm going to bring this back for.
So, getting to a couple of your comments here, of rushing the idea, I don't believe we're rushing it. I think it's long overdue. I don't remember the last time we tried to do a fire measure, but it's been quite a few years ago. The thing that worries me about the concept of everybody getting together is it actually happening, because we've tried this before. We've tried to get everybody together, and I would really want a really sincere letter of participation from those districts if we're going to do this, because if one of them backs out, we're back to square one again, and time is just going away from us. So, I'm willing to wait to get Sarah to find the mechanism. I think it's going to be complicated. I do recall working on the when they created the Groveland School District, and it being a countywide measure, it didn't pass in the district that the school's in, but it passed countywide. So, there's a lot of issues there. So, I hope that there is an answer. I just hope that we don't lose an opportunity.
Yeah, and that's, I kind of agree with Supervisor Gray there. I mean, we've been talking about this since, last year. And if we do nothing now, the only alternatives are to revisit this in the form of a special election, which will cost the taxpayers additional money, as has been stated, or wait until the election of 2022, which at that point, those funds will not be available for another, half of the fiscal year. So we're into almost 2023, but before we have any kind of secure funding for fire. And that's if we do nothing right now.
One thing Debbie was just reminding me, and I want to make sure the board is aware that no matter what we do, if we put this off and your board decides that you want to do the special election at some different time, if the voters were to approve it, in order for the revenue to even be coming into fire for 21-22, the vote would have to take place before June. So it means everything needs to be in place and done. And then we would come back with your board if you decide to do a special election when we do the adopted budget with some way to figure out how to pay for that $100,000 cost for a special election. So just some thoughts there, depending on whatever your board chooses to do.
Supervisor Kirk.
I completely agree with what Supervisor Gray and Campbell said. I've met with several of the districts. And what this really comes down to is everyone has their kingdom and they want to make sure their kingdom's funded, and I get that. I can't change that. I'm just looking at the harsh reality of if I'm a voter and I open up my pamphlet, we all know the dirty details and we understand what's going on, but most voters, if they don't look into it, they're just going to be confused and they're not going to understand or agree with multiple tax measures on a ballot for unincorporated, incorporated, this district, that district. So I want to keep this as simple as possible. We said we couldn't get contracts through the juvenile hall for years. With a little bit of pressure, we made it happen in 2 weeks, hopefully finalizing here soon. So for all the chiefs, all the districts who are online listening, we need to, if we're going to make this happen and not waste more taxpayers' money for a special election, we need to get together now and decide what that verbiage is going to look like and how this is going to happen now, because if not, I don't know if I'm willing, well, I won't state what I'm thinking for down the road. But I think that conversation needs to happen now. I think we need to make this happen now and not wait for a special election. So like Supervisor Gray said, if they can be sincere and we can get some commitment and get a meeting set up, move forward, that way we can get this on for the November ballot, then that's what I'd love to see. So I guess that's it for now. Thank you.
Supervisor Rutherford.
Okay. I think here are my concerns. First of all, I don't like taxes, but this is a very important one. And I fully support getting a revenue measure for fire. And I don't want anybody to misinterpret what I'm going to say after that, okay? We have to get a revenue measure for fire. And I believe that the only way to do that and get it passed by the voters, because it doesn't matter what we vote on up here, if it shows up on the ballot and it fails, we've failed, okay? So I believe that the only way, again, this is a 2/3 vote by the public. The only way we do that is, A, we have our ducks in a row, and B, I believe, a single ballot measure, okay, for everybody. And what I am hearing from the staff, and the staff can correct me if I have misheard, but what I am hearing is we do not have the vehicle in place at this time to get a single ballot measure that covers all the special districts and county fire. I believe we need to have that in place in order to guarantee success for that. Even then, it's not a guarantee, but to have a reasonable chance for success on this ballot initiative. This is too important an issue to go off half-cocked, okay? I think that we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared, the county with all the special districts. We need to be prepared with the messaging, prepared messaging. I don't believe we did a very good job. In fact, I will tell you, we did not do a very good job messaging with our last two ballot initiatives. We need to do much better. The dirty little details that Supervisor Kirk talked about, the public needs to understand those, okay? We understand them because we live with them day in and day out. County Fire understands them because they live with them even closer than we do day in and day out. The special districts, special fire districts understand them. But I believe we need to do some more work before we put this on the ballot. There is no difference in terms of when we get access to the money between the fall and the spring, as long as we do it before, Debbie, you said June? Okay. So in terms of when we get the money, there's not much difference. There is a solid argument that can be made, I believe, that doing it in November, fire is more on people's mind in November, obviously, than in April or May or whenever we get around to doing it if we don't do it in November. So yes, it's not as compelling an interest for the public, but I think we can overcome that with messaging. And I believe that we need to be better prepared, better organized across the fire districts. And I believe for the long term, this is, this isn't the only issue that we need to do better coordination across fire agencies in this county. I believe getting the right mechanism in place, doing that hard work will benefit our fire coordination across the board, as well as enhance our ability to get a measure passed on a ballot. So what I would like to see is I would like to see us put in place a prioritized or a group of people led by one or two supervisors, a dedicated, not 100%, but somebody who that's their job out of our CAO's office, county fire, and get representation from all the fire districts, get legal involved, okay? How do we put together this mechanism to do one ballot initiative and have a schedule with hard deadlines, report back to the board on the effort? How do we message it? All of that stuff with a target date. You pick it, April or May, okay? And let's try and do this the right way in the spring. And that's my position.
Okay. John, one last bite, and then I want to make some comments.
Okay, and I thank you for that because it's related directly to what Supervisor Rotifer said, because it's making a lot of sense again. The thing that I just want to really hit hard on is that the special districts have to come to the table, and they have resources also. They have legal, they can contribute to the process. It can't be just the county sitting here paying for all of this to make it happen. So I'm asking the districts out there, if you are really sincere about joining in on this, that you join in also with your pocketbook, because we are not going to be able to fund it all, I believe. So that's my pitch.
And thank you for that. I think that is a fair comment and needs to be part of this.
Could I just,
Okay.
the city attorney has been looking into this, as well as Groveland Community Service District. They have a consultant on board, and they also have been looking into this. So I just want to let you know that we haven't.
All right. My final comment is I want to see success. And I am really concerned about our ability to, if this is on the ballot in November, and we actually lose the opportunity. And when I said rushed, we've been talking about it. We understand the absolute dire need, but there are sectors of our public that do not. And 1/3 voting against it with a very targeted campaign to vote no and dollars put into it, I am absolutely concerned that this will fail. Aside from the very complicated nature of what could happen. And so as Supervisor Rotifer pointed out, and I looked into this timeline also, and he's correct, if we have this prior to June 1, yes, we will incur some costs. I know we also spent some money in a very tight fiscal year to find consultants with the last ballot measures, and we missed the mark. And so I would rather find the best possible path to success. And so when I talk about rushing, that is what I am referring to, is that I don't believe that we are coordinating with all of the individual districts out there that could help us with this. And then I think we have some key constituencies that we need to do a much better job with in articulating, as you did, Chief, the need for this. And again, these are things that we know, we've heard, but the public has not, or at least a large segment of the public. So I think we have a campaign in the spring that is equally visible. Again, during fire season, it's front and center on everyone's mind. But spring, we have seen an elevated interest in this as people prepare for the upcoming fire season. So I'm looking to my colleagues.
I just like to make one other point. There is a practical political advantage to going in the spring as well. Okay. The November ballot is going to be a political environment, okay, all three, national, state, and local. There's going to be a lot of politics involved. There's going to be a lot of emotion involved. This, of all things, ought to be a non-political issue. And by doing it in the spring, you get it out of that political environment, and it's a standalone, or maybe one of two, we'll see, but it is at least standing on its own face, and it's outside of the political arena, and I think that's very, very important. So what I would recommend is we give staff direction to set up that group as I outlined, and I don't really have too much emotion on who the supervisors are. I'll leave that to the chair, but give staff direction to set up that group and come back within, I'd say give them a month, to come back with a roadmap with all of the phase points outlined and at least an initial agreement from the districts, special districts, and how we're going to lock down that commitment by the special districts, because I believe, I agree wholeheartedly with Supervisor Gray. If we don't have them all, we're going to have a real hard time with this, okay? So that would be my recommendation, is just give staff direction at this point and have them come back and talk to us.
Supervisor Kirk.
You can appoint whoever you want, but I just felt compelled to say, being that so many of the fire issues are in my district, and I have lots of the Tuolumne, Miwok, Strawberry, Tweenheart, I'd volunteer happily to help messaging. I think it's important to note too, because I told people campaigning I'm against taxes, and we'll talk about TOT in a minute, but through my research, I've tried to close down the hall to save money. We've done new budget programs. We're looking at bargaining units next year. We're doing everything we can to cut the fat. But my analysis of the entire situation, and some people talk about the CAL FIRE contract or no contract, but all my research, no matter how much cutting we do, we will not have enough funding to make the fire revenue secure with all those cuts. We really need to, we're years behind in funding the number one most important issue to our constituents, which is fire. So I wholeheartedly believe that as a community, as a districts, we need to come together. We need to put something that's obtainable, that we can achieve, and that we can, launch fire into the future. And I'm sure we'll be back here again in 20 years, but hopefully we can plan it out. So with that being said, I didn't want to waste any money putting it in spring, but I think we're going to waste a lot of time and energy if we don't put it into the spring. So you flipped my mind, Carl. So I agree with that, and I'll volunteer for that if you'd like to throw me on there. So.
Okay, I'm looking for consensus on the recommendation across the dais. Yes? All right, and I will work with county council and report back, because I've got some questions of her on the best formation of this working group. And so I think we can get some answers, and I can report out at our next regular meeting. All right. Thank you. And I want to thank the public and the districts for weighing in. This is a really very, very important conversation. With that, will the clerk please read item number 2?
Consideration of waiving the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 3.32 of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code, increasing the transient occupancy tax from 10% to 12% in the unincorporated area of Tuolumne County, and extending application on the tax to campgrounds and recreational vehicle parks, subject to voter approval, and provide staff direction on the associated resolution calling the election and argument in favor of the board of the ballot measure. Please call in now for public comment on this item.
Okay, so also on July 7th, your board directed staff to prepare a resolution and ordinance which would amend our existing TOT ordinance, or transient occupancy tax ordinance, that would, if approved by the voters, increase the rate of our TOT from 10% to 12% and expand the application of that tax to campgrounds and recreational vehicle parks within the unincorporated area of Tuolumne County. Your board also directed this ordinance be prepared in time to be placed on the November 3rd ballot. also with the same deadline as August 7th, and also with the same requirements of a first reading of the ordinance potentially today, and a second reading of the ordinance on August 4th, as well as an approval of the resolution on August 4th as well. Staff is also looking for direction from your board as to interest in preparing a ballot argument in favor of the measure. Again, the same rules apply as the previous measure that we discussed, a limit to 300 words that would be printed in the county voter information guide. I just want to make note of a couple other things. This item also would be required to be approved by 4/5 vote of your board. This is a general tax, so it would only be required to pass by 50% plus one of the voters. But I also want to make you aware that this would have to be on a general election. We cannot set this measure. We cannot set a special election for this measure.
Okay. Are there any board questions? Is there any public comment?
Required to pass by one of the voters. I also want to make you aware that it has to be on general elections. We cannot set this. Sorry, is it my turn?
Yes, you're live with the board.
Oh, hi, everybody. Sorry about the delay. It's a little confusing. So this is Terry Marshall. I'm the Director of Marketing for Rush Creek Lodge and Evergreen Lodge at Yosemite, and I'm here today in my capacity as a volunteer on the board for Visit Tuolumne County. And I just would like to say there's a very mixed sentiment about this throughout the lodging community, and I don't know if you guys are looking to us to supply any kind of support for the increase. There is a lot of opposition to it. There's also some frustration because I think undue pressure has been put on Lisa Mayo and Visit Tuolumne County to help with this measure, and that's not really an appropriate role for VTC. Hopefully everybody knows by now that the Tuolumne County Lodging Association had disbanded for a couple of years, and as of June 12th, the Tuolumne County Lodging Association is formally back in session. So that's a more appropriate channel of communication for trying to get things done. I think it would be great to be able to have a conversation outside of the 3-minute window to figure out, what the plan is moving forward. I can tell you that based on my interaction with different lodging entities, there's everything from some lodging owners who would like to see TOT go away completely, and some who are, frustrated at the fact that we have to constantly come back to consideration of renegotiating the Visit Tuolumne County contract. So one thing that would probably help in garnering support for this measure is if there were some sort of guarantee that we wouldn't have to keep going back to the drawing board about the idea of renegotiating the contract. If any increase in TOT is to occur, the 25% of it should continue to go to fund Visit Tuolumne County, which has a proven track record of generating tourism that generates meaningful revenue for the entire county. And I guess just from that, I would just like to know if you have any questions of me in 60 seconds or less.
Are you representing the Visitors Bureau as a board member?
I am, yes.
I have a question. I'm looking at county council because I was made aware of some information last night, and I would.
It's very hard to hear you.
My mic is on, so I can ask a question and get clarification. Okay. Because I was under the impression after a conversation last night when we were talking about, I believe it's the other mechanism for assessment.
A T-bid.
Thank you, the
Yes.
T-bid. I was under the impression that the Visitors Bureau was very I didn't hear a lot of support initially for looking at that as a real vehicle. And I was led to believe last night in a conversation that the Visitors Bureau actually is looking at that in a very serious way. Can you comment on that?
Yes, and that's a great question, and I appreciate the opportunity to clarify. So a TBID, which stands for a Tourism Business Improvement District, is something that lodging owners self-assess. And in doing so, they get to keep that money as opposed to it going into the county's general fund. And to have the Visitors Bureau leading the charge for investigating a TBID is not appropriate. That is something that a lodging association should be doing. So the great news about Lisa Mayo and the Visitors Bureau is that she proactively brought in the experts who put together TBIDs to speak to the board so that we could get the ball rolling because there was no lodging association to go to. So they got the ball rolling for some preliminary consideration. And now it's really up to the lodging association to take it the next steps with lodging owners because they'll be the ones who are self-assessing any TBID. The other really important point to clarify is that doing a TBID is not a do-it-yourself project. It is a legal process that requires a minimum of $53,000 at the outset, and that's if everything goes perfectly. And then the process to establish the TBID takes a minimum of 1 year, and that is only after you have 51% approval from the lodging entities who will be assessed. So the concern is that if anybody is thinking that a TBID is a short-term solution, that's very misguided. It is a long-term solution, and it is fantastic that the Visitors Bureau went ahead and took the initial steps to start introducing the concept to the lodging community, and that's what helped encourage the revitalization of the Tuolumne County Lodging Association. So the short answer is yes, the Visitors Bureau very much is taking the lead on it, but no, that's not an appropriate role for the Visitors Bureau, and that conversation next needs to continue with the now revitalized Tuolumne County Lodging Association. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you for the clarification.
Terry, just to also clarify, I did reach out to the Lodging Association last week. So if there isn't any interest in having a conversation there, myself or any of the board members, I think would be happy to have that conversation.
Okay, Supervisor.
Yeah, just a couple comments on a couple of things that you've said. I'm not aware of anybody that's strong-arming anybody in the Visitors Bureau. I haven't spoken to anyone other than you, Terry, in quite a while. So I'm a little objective to that particular comment. The other thing is that in order to run a county, and we've had these conversations before, it costs money, and visitors cost us money. And there is really no other mechanism that we have to secure money from those visitors other than a TOT tax. So it was put in place, Lisa sent me a nice history of the TOT tax. I agree with some of it, not all of it. But the fact is, it's a need. And if we're going to continue to operate the county at a reasonable level and provide the services of safety and emergency services, we're going to need funding. And I ask all of the people that have the businesses to do the best to collect that money for the county. The public needs to know that that money is collected isn't going into the coffers of the businesses. It's coming back to the county to provide those services. So just want to make it clear, I don't know anybody that's beaten the Visitors Bureau up.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Is there any other public? Thank you. Carrie? Is it Carrie? Thank you, Carrie, thank you, Terry.
Is there any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to bring this back.
I guess I'll start out. Yeah, to me, it just boils down to it's not enough to say that we support law enforcement and that we support libraries, parks, and that we support the Visitors Bureau, and then fail to support funding it. And that's exactly what the TOT is for. If we don't have something like this, what we're saying is that somebody has to pay for these services, and we're asking our property taxpayers to foot the bill entirely. If you look at any county or city that has a high amount of tourism, whether it's Tuolumne County, Mariposa, Anaheim, Miami, Myrtle Beach, Hawaii, all these places that have a lot of tourism, they all have a transient occupancy tax. It's all a tourist tax, and it's because they have a large number of people that visit these areas that use the services, that need law enforcement and fire services, but they don't live there permanently, and so they don't pay property tax. So that's why we have this TOT, this tourism tax. And so in my opinion, 10%, which we have now, has been low for a long time. It's low in our region. It's not enough to cover the cost of the services that we are providing, and that's clear by the budget process that we just went through and that we've gone through for the past several years. And so, we're not talking about a tax that's going to unduly provide an undue hardship for the citizens of Tuolumne County. All we're doing is asking folks that come here to visit our county to enjoy the natural beauty of Tuolumne County, to enjoy our recreational opportunities. We're asking those people to pay their fair share to ensuring that those resources, that the services that make this county function continue and that they are funded. So I just don't see how you can be a supporter of law enforcement or any of these vital services and then not support a method of paying for it. The other, I guess I have a question for staff as well, but in the actual language of the ordinance, one of the elements that I think hurt this when it was on the ballot in March was that we as a county, as county government, failed, I think, in explaining exactly what this is for. I think it was seen as, a regressive tax that would impact our citizens, and, the fact that it has the word transient in it, that word has a meaning to a lot of folks that isn't really applicable in this situation. I have had people ask me if this is a tax that applies to homeless people, and of course it is not. And so the actual language of the ballot measure has hotel tax in it. That I don't think is quite accurate either, because it is extending to campgrounds, RV parks, and it's not actually a tax on the hotel itself. It's a pass-through tax on folks that rent a room. So the hotel is collecting the tax, but you're not actually taxing the hotel. So in other words, if nobody's staying at the hotel isn't getting taxed. They're only getting taxed if they're having a lot of folks come to visit. So I wouldn't want to die in the hill of changing that language to say a tourism tax or a tourist tax, something like that. But it's something to think about as we are explaining to the community why this is important and what its actual function is. I guess the overall comment is that we need to do a better job on the messaging of this, and I guess that is my final comment.
I actually have a question, Ms. Batista. I'm hoping you can answer this. On the campgrounds and RV parks, does that extend to Forest Service campgrounds? And specifically, I guess, the ones I'm wondering about, are those that are under concessionaire contracts.
You almost answered your own question.
Thank you.
If it's the federal, the answer is no. If it's a concessionaire, the answer is yes.
Thank you. Right, Supervisor Rotifer.
Okay, this is one of those, and I don't mean to insult anybody explicitly or implicitly, but this is one of those that I believe should be a no-brainer for our voters, okay? People in this county that are not staying at lodging in this county aren't paying a dime on this tax. This is revenue that is coming into our county for use on those services that we provide our guests that is being paid by our guests. It is not being, as Supervisor Campbell said, and then he muddied the waters a little bit, that it doesn't matter to the hotelier. They don't lose money out of their pocket. It's just part of the money that goes to them. It's added on top of that, and it comes to the county. We provide not just law enforcement, but because my wife does a huge fundraiser for them every year, except probably this year, I'm pretty closely plugged into the search and rescue program. We provide search and rescue, and you cannot believe the number of calls. You know, most of our people up here live up here. They were born up here. If they weren't, they figured it out pretty quickly how not to get yourself in trouble out in the forest. Our visitors, not always so much. So, I mean, especially in the high visitation season, our search and rescue folks are pretty busy. We provide fire support, okay? Both if somebody gets sick or injured on the 911 calls, fire rolls along with the ambulance and the paramedics. You have no idea, just because of the traffic coming in and out, how many little small fires that fortunately we can bat down a lot, but how many fires are started by people that unintentionally that come to visit, that just don't know how to do things safely in this county. Those are the services that are draining our budget. And if you talk to the sheriff, you talk to the county fire chief, you talk to the district fire chiefs, their calls for service have gone up several fold, okay, multiples over the past several years as our visitorship has increased. The people that come here ought to be paying for that, not the people that live here. And so when you have a choice between doing, say, a sales tax or a property tax or whatever, and you have a choice of doing that or a TOT tax to increase revenue, for me, it's a no-brainer. So, as I believe Supervisor Campbell also pointed out, we're 2% under our neighboring foothill counties who are our competition. So I don't see how raising this 2% to be at an equal parity level with them somehow hurts our lodging industry. I would also say to the comments that were made by Teresa earlier, I agree. I think the county and the lodging industry can and need to work more closely together. But that's a two-way street, okay? When we start talking about cooperating, and when we start talking about not trying to renegotiate the percentage split, and all of those things, that takes a two-way dialogue. And I'm not sure that the lodging industry in the past has been as willing to have that dialogue, and I'm not casting stones or anything. I just would invite them to participate with us actively going forward. The past is past. Let's move forward. And maybe we can solve two issues there, one that they might have and one that we might have. So, but I believe we can't wait 2 years to fix our general fund budget. Again, we didn't do very well the last time. And I think that we didn't message as well. I agree with Supervisor Campbell. Again, I'm doing that a lot today. But I truly believe we need to do a much better job on messaging, and we need to get that information out there. So I'm going to move that we direct staff to come back. I'm sorry. You want to make the motion to put it on the ballot?
I'm going to give everyone just a moment here.
Okay.
A chance to
I
comment.
thought
on
everybody
this.
had.
So Supervisor Gray, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I just tag on to what Carl is saying about the lodging industry, and I want to add into the Visitors Bureau. Maybe the Visitors Bureau as an organization can't specifically jump on board and champion a TOT tax, but as individual members of that board and the group that governs it certainly benefit from the TOT tax. They're getting 25% of every dollar that we collect, and that's how they get people to come to Tuolumne County. And yes, we want them because we want the income, but there's always that point of saturation. How many people can we put in Tuolumne County on any one day? So there's a balance there, and I believe that we certainly need everybody's support that's in this game together. And the Visitors Bureau is in this game with us. The lodging, I'm happy to hear the Lodging Association resurfacing because they're in it together. We're all in it together. So like Carl said, we need to team up and work because the money is needed. We're not nilly-willy out here trying to pass a tax measure that isn't needed. And as Carl did say, it's not being paid by the taxpayer of Tuolumne County. It's being paid by the people that come in and use Tuolumne County and don't pay property taxes. So that's my spiel.
Okay. So I'm having a little bit of a conflict right now because of some conversations I had around this T-bid and not fully understanding the timing of it. And again, I want success. I want to know at the end of the day what ultimately is going to get us to success, because I agree with the premises that Supervisor Gray just spoke of and Supervisor Rotifer spoke about. And again, I'm told it's one or the other. We either have the increase in TOT or we have the T-bid. And again, that's not managed. That's not manageable. That is what the industry here in Tuolumne County would support. So I'm not saying that's a legal piece. I'm saying that to get to that percent of participation, it's either the T-bid plus the current TOT or the increased TOT.
I believe that's a completely separate issue.
I'd just like to clarify, T-bid, so, and maybe I'm misunderstanding you, Supervisor Brennan, the T-bid is not something that ever comes into the county. That's something that is always managed and goes back to whoever manages their investment or not investment.
Correct, but then we would renegotiate, we would be in a better position to renegotiate the contract that we currently have.
I think it's two completely separate issues.
Except they're both show up on a bill, on a lodging bill.
logic bill, but not on a ballot. We're trying.
Correct, I understand, but at the end of the day, it's what are we going to have support for to see success in increased revenue that offsets in one form or another? And again, I understand the T-bid goes to the association, but they're looking for a certain level of funding.
I was just going to say, with the lodging association, the T-bid may go to the lodging association and not the Visit Tuolumne. Again, don't know how they're going to put it together. I'm just making a what-if comment.
And I was going to say that is that there's no guarantee in how that T-bid is used. And to me, whether or not the lodging industry decides to have a T-bid is going to happen irrespective of what the Board of Supervisors does. And, we're here trying to secure funding for the services that the county provides. And it just seems like too much of a stretch to me to hope that, one, that the lodging industry does pass a T-bid, two, that there is support for reducing the Visitors Bureau two, that money goes to the Visitors Bureau, and three, that there's support for reducing the Visitors Bureau's percentage of the transient occupancy tax to account for that increase in the T-bid. So that to me is kind of a stretch,
Okay,
and
so
it's something that will take a long period of time, and it's not something that the Board of Supervisors has any say over, whereas a TOT we do.
It's a formula, Ryan. And if it is part of the formula for, and again, lodging industry / Visitors Bureau, it's part of the formula, and the formula would have an offset. Supervisor Kirk, I think you were listening to the conversation at the Visitors Bureau. Is there something that I heard that's not, I'm not stating correctly, that was part of their conversations?
She kind of summarized it. I do know it's going to take about, if it was quick, about a year to get something in play, maybe longer for a T-bid. But the last conversation we had was 5 or 6 weeks ago, so I can't remember all the details.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at success, and how do we get to success? So we can put it on the ballot. I'm not certain that it will pass. We need more partners. We need more information out there, and not certain what will be different in November that was different in March.
I can speak to that a little bit. I've looked at this quite a bit. With the two ballot measures we had in March, the sales tax was defeated pretty soundly. Something like 70% of the county voted no on that. The transient occupancy tax that was also on the ballot was defeated by about, I think it was 3.4 percentage points, so much narrower margin. And I think that if we get more buy-in from the community and we do a better job of explaining it, I think we can make up that 3% difference. I've had many constituents reach out to me and say that they voted against the TOT and regretted it because they didn't have all the information about what that money would be used for and who would be paying. So I think that there is a great deal of support for it. Certainly, and the same argument that I stated before applies with the TOT, that if we do nothing, if we don't act now, the next opportunity will not come until 2022. And at that point, if everything goes exactly according to plan and it passes and it's great, the money from that will not come into the county until, say, the second quarter of 2023. So we're 3 years out if we don't, for any kind of relief for our budget, if we don't act right now.
So I'm looking to Ms. Batista for some clarification on that point.
I'm not sure how you're coming up with your timing, so I'm going to make up time, okay? So we put a ballot measure for TOT in March of 2022. Which would be March of 2022. then the TOT would go in effect if we do what we've done in the past, working with all of the hotel, motel, campgrounds, blah, blah, blah people, then it would go into effect probably July 1st of '22. So I'm not sure where you're coming up
Okay.
with 23.
So, well, 2 years. Okay. So still a long time before it has any impact on our budget.
Right, it's not like a parcel tax, you need to wait for the next tax year for it to go into effect. Usually, again, if we do what we did in the past, it went into the next quarter. You know, everybody wanted time to advertise, et cetera, et cetera. Some of them had their bills out online about how much you would pay, and they wanted to give some time. And I'm assuming we could do that. I mean, technically, once the election's been certified, it could go into effect. But again, working with our partners, they want some lag time to put it in place.
Okay. Supervisor Kirk?
I've been listening, and I think some of you know where I stood based on the last meeting, but, you know, I get the timing of everything. I get that we want libraries funded, all these things funded. And no, I didn't take anything you said, Carl, personal about, you know, it's a no-brainer. But there's this little thing called COVID that happened, and our businesses are being decimated. People don't have the money, and we're talking about raising a tax. Now, I know we're talking about it being a outside tax from people visiting, but just the word tax is upsetting to most people. Now, I'm willing to put my name, like I said, on the fire parcel tax fee because that stays local. It's specific to fire. But when we talk about increasing TOT, we say it's going to go to fire. We say it's going to go to law enforcement. And, you know, part of the board's position the last 2 years is that we have funded fire more. We put 1.6 2 years ago, 1.4 last year. The average was 400,000. So we are using more general fund money to pay for fire. But the reality of it is it going to a general fund, which means it can generally go anywhere. And I think people are smart enough to know that when we say raise TOT to offset these expenses for fire, for sheriff, while our intent may be good, it may not pan out the way we intend it to be. We don't know what the future holds. So I really want to go after the messaging for the fire. I want people to have the ability to fund specifically fire. And I think that if we do that correctly and we can get the fire thing to pass, the fire parcel fee to pass, which is still going to be a huge ordeal to overcome because, again, we're talking about a tax and a fee in the middle of COVID-19. And a lot of the aftermath is still yet to be seen. But if we can get that to pass, that $1.4 million that we spent last year, that $1.6 million that we spent the year before, that's money that's going to stay in the general fund. And although it may not be as much as the TOT, it's still 1.6 million that's going to stay in there. And I don't want people who disagree with me to think I'm against libraries because I fought to keep libraries open in Parks and Rec. But my honest opinion is I want something to succeed. And I think if we don't focus on one thing to succeed, both are going to fail. The 3% margin of error on the TOT not passing, that was during a healthy economy with crappy messaging. Now we have COVID, and we're going to message. I still don't think it's going to pass. So that's where I stand on it. I mean, I'm just trying to look at it. A lot of the decisions I make are from meeting with constituents, and really what I'm getting from everybody is who the hell wants to raise taxes right now, and that's really where the majority of people are. So we'll go to a vote here in a minute, but I really want the fire thing to succeed. And if it does, we'll see that money come back to the general fund that we've been spending extra on. So that's my hope, my formula for success, hopefully, for this situation.
So the fire thing, as you say, are we talking about the November ballot, or are we talking about a special election?
We already decided we're going to do the special election.
Okay, so then we're not talking about November, so I don't quite understand the argument.
So again, we should be focusing on messaging for the fire, which is going to be coming up. And again, it comes down to I don't think anybody wants to raise taxes right now with COVID. And for me personally, being in government, I want to fund fire. I want to fund law enforcement with the general fund. But raising the TOT is not a promise that is where that money is going to go.
Okay. So Supervisor Rotifer, and then I think,
Okay. I'm missing your point, Supervisor Kirk, because there's two separate issues here. There's a fire fund and there's a general fund. We have problems in both, okay? The only way we can fix the fire fund if we don't have the fire tax is to rob more from the general fund, which will hurt it. We're not going to rob more from the fire fund to fix the general fund. It's a one-way movement of money, okay? We still, even with the fire fund, we will still have all the problems that we faced in the general fund, okay? And so we still need to fix the general fund. This tax, and I hate that word, it ought to be TAXX because it should be a four-letter word, in my opinion. But this tax is not doesn't take any money out of any of our residents. This is a way to get money to reimburse this county for the services that are being provided, quite frankly, at a bargain right now to our visitors. It fixes a different problem than the fire tax fixes, okay? We have two distinct problems. If we don't get the fire tax, we will have a bigger problem in the general fund. But if we don't get the TOT, we're going to still have both the problem in the general fund and the problem in the fire fund. So I'll shut up now, but your logic is totally escaping me, and that's not meant as an insult. I'm just not getting it.
My logic is I want success, and I think the only success we have moving forward is the fire. When we're talking about TOT, again, if the fire fee gets approved, we're going to get like I said, we spent 1.4, 1.6 million extra out of the general fund. That's going to return. That's money that we will no longer have to spend out of the general fund.
That's not true.
If we want to talk about big picture, I'm trying to be respectful, and we can have this conversation, but we have a trust issue with our community, a transparency issue with our community, where we've built the juvenile hall, which we all say is going to save money, but I don't think it is. Our employees deserve raises, but where were our reserves and our contingencies to deal with situations when we have problems? We have nothing. I don't think we've managed things properly. I don't think the public trusts us moving forward. So I don't think it doesn't matter what we say moving forward. I don't think anything's going to pass unless it's very specific and very targeted, and the funding will only go toward such as county fire.
You made my point, okay? We have to fix the general fund, and we can fix the general fund either by re-engaging on something like a sales tax, or we can re-engage on the...
So if we fix the general fund, we're going to have unions asking for paybacks and increases.
And
we're gonna
okay, gentlemen.
We're gonna continue to fund the juvenile hall. Hold on, we're gonna continue to fund the juvenile hall when I know there's a cost savings. We're gonna continue to do things
He
that
interrupted
Okay.
me. You
I
interrupted me. Okay? Let me finish.
This is where I stand.
Let me
I can't be
finish.
persuaded.
Okay? The general, we're not going, by passing the fire tax, we're not going to go take that money out of the fire fund. We're going to still have to put that money in the fire fund to make the fire fund well. So we're not going to fix the general fund with the fire fund. We have to fix the general fund separately. If you're talking about subventing money out of the fire fund because of money that we get with a specialized tax, I'm not in favor of that at all, because then you are lying to our public. Okay?
So point of clarification.
We're not going to fix the general fund with the fire tax. This is to fix the general fund.
So can I get clarification on that? The 1.4, 1.6 that we spent on years past, can you clarify?
Just to be clear, it was only in 1920 that 1.7 went And for this fiscal year, we see 1.3 or 1.4. It is completely up to the board on how the general fund transfers out are made. I don't know that we would be able to pull the whole amount. I'm not sure. We don't know. But that's completely up to the board about how that money would be used, that transfer out, for any of the transfers out. Well, most of them.
Chairwoman, I
Other
have
board questions?
Chairman, I have a question for staff. Either CAO Riggs or Debbie, could you give us an idea of why are we here right now discussing this? What is our budget going to look like next year or the year after that if we don't look at revenues as a part of having a healthy, balanced county budget?
So both your auditor controller and I have been coming to the board and relaying that our revenues are not keeping up with our expenses. And I had also pointed out in the presentation for the 2021 budget that we had approximately $4 million, mostly personnel costs that were put off this year that will reoccur unless we negotiate to suspend and move forward again without any types of increases. So it will be a very difficult year. That's why we are always looking for revenue options. And without these revenue options, we will continue to look at services that we will have to reduce in order to balance the budget.
So a couple of points. I don't have a lot of confidence that this will pass, but I see the dire situation that we're in. 2 points is that I don't think the public understands the taxes that we collect across the spectrum and where those taxes go back to. Sales tax is a perfect example. And I think that if there is any slight opportunity that this will pass, we need to do a much better job in informing the public on where the tax revenues actually go. Because one of the comments that I hear consistently is, how can you not live on the money that I am already paying in taxes? How is that possible? And again, there is just a basic misunderstanding of where those dollars go to. And I don't think it has to be complicated, but I think we need to do a much better job in having that information disseminated and available for the public. Ms. Riggs?
We will, of course, work on whatever the board wants us to work on. I will tell you, there is no way for me to sit here and tell you how much of the TOT goes to fund fire or any of those.
No, I'm not
sheriff.
expecting that, but what I am suggesting is where the different revenue sources that we collect end up ultimately going to. What goes to the city? What goes to the state? What percentage of, the different streams of funding that we have, where do they go? Because, again, there is this general impression amongst our public that why can we not live within our means given the amount of taxes that they are paying? So going to, I think, very reluctantly, I'll let Supervisor, if you want to move on.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move that we waive the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 3.32 of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code, increasing the transient occupancy tax from 10 to 12% in the unincorporated area of Tuolumne County, and extending application of the tax to campgrounds and recreational vehicle parks, subject to voter approval, and provide staff direction. We will provide staff direction. That's my motion.
Second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Rutherford. I'm taking Campbell as the second. Do you want a roll call vote?
So can I just ask for some clarification on that motion? Would you also like us to bring the second reading back on August 4th? And as far as the draft resolution, that is also in the packet, I do want to let you know that the ballot measure language is in that resolution. And so if you do wish to make some changes, you can to that without having to redo the first reading of the ordinance. So if you wanted to maybe change the language of the hotel tax to, say, something like tourist tax or whatever your board maybe wishes, but we could bring that back on August 4th also for your board's approval. I don't know how you want to work on making those changes.
Would two supervisors be willing to work with staff to,
I will work with staff.
so
I'll
the
be glad
maker
to.
of the motion and the second of the motion will work with staff on that language. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. With that, seeing no other business, we will adjourn the meeting.
Right on time.